This story starts when I moved into a new town, and because of that, I started going to a new high school. I was 14 at the time, and Snapchat was a pretty popular messaging app. People would often use it as a way to connect with peers from school. I was getting to know a lot of people and started making new friends. I shared my Snapchat username with some of my friends, and then I had a ton of new people from the school adding me. I had given my username to a few people, so I didn't think it was that weird. I simply added everyone back that added me. I checked, and most of them showed up on the Snap map nearby to my high school, so it wasn't like I was adding back complete strangers. I remember it was Friday. I had just gotten back from school, and it was 8 p.m. The reason I'd stayed so late was because the school had volleyball tryouts that same night, and back then, I was really into that sort of thing. I remember when I got home, I got something to eat when my cousin texted me, asking if he could come over. Of course, I told him to come over since it was a Friday. He came about an hour later, and we sat in the living room for a long time watching Netflix. At some point, I don't remember exactly when, I jokingly told my cousin to look out the window just behind him. A little weird, I know, but we always used to mess with each other and try to scare the other person. However, this time, when he looked over his shoulder, he didn't look back right away. He replied saying that he thought he actually saw someone. I couldn't figure out what he meant, but I thought he was just trying to scare me back. I forgot about it, but my cousin kept on looking outside. He became very uncomfortable sitting there. That was until about an hour later when out of nowhere my dog jumped up, ran to the front door, and started barking aggressively. My cousin and I both looked at each other. My dog was a very quiet dog. He would only bark when he felt threatened. It actually startled me as I hadn't even heard him bark for months. I thought it might have been possible that he heard a noise from the TV or something. But the movie we were watching had ended 10 minutes ago, and we were both just sitting in silence on our phones. It was midnight by now, and I tried to calm my dog. Finally, around 1 a.m., my cousin and I decided to go upstairs and start getting ready to go to sleep. I still remember this moment perfectly to this day. I was laying down on the couch using my phone, checking Snapchat when I decided to open the Snap map just casually. And that's when I saw it. According to the map, 4 other people were at my location, close enough to where Snapchat groups your Bitmojis together. One of them was my cousin, but the other 3 were random Bitmojis I'd never seen before. I started thinking of all the possibilities of who would be this close to me. I went through all their profiles, but I didn't remember adding a single one of them. I knew I must have at some point without realizing it, as like I said, I had been adding a lot of new people recently. Now a little worried, I told my cousin, and we went downstairs to check and make sure all the doors were locked. It was snowing for a better part of the day at that time, so when we got to the main door to see if someone was there, we couldn't help but notice fresh footprints signifying people had been walking around the property. There were even some in the backyard, which was gated, meaning whoever it was had to have jumped the fence. We were genuinely worried now. When both of us were outside in the backyard, we heard the window to our room closing with a bang. When both of us raised our heads, we were terrified to see there was someone looking at us from inside standing by the window. We ran away to the front of our house. When I checked the Snap map, it said the 3 guys' locations were last seen an hour ago, and an hour ago was when my dog started viciously barking at the front door for no reason. The more I thought about everything, the more it seemed to connect, and now there was someone inside the house as well. After a minute or 2 of waiting, we both decided to go back inside and search the house carefully, but we found no one. Not a single person was inside, but there were strange footprints. We still thought that just maybe we were overthinking things. We didn't want to call the police just yet. That was what I remembered. The house actually did have multiple Ring security cameras around the property, and I figured we could check those. Anyway, we started looking through what the cameras had picked up within the last few hours. Now, when going through the footage, you could actually turn on a setting so that it would only show you the clips where motion was detected. So, I selected it, and it started playing clip after clip from cameras that detected motion. Almost all of them just featured tree branches blowing in front of the camera, or normal stuff like that. But eventually, we were shown a clip of some random people we'd never seen before walking up to our property. They were all dressed head to toe in clown costumes, each carrying a baseball bat in their hands. More clips were shown of the clowns walking around. More times than once, you could see them cup their hands against the windows in an attempt to look inside. As we went back to the main screen of the footage that was showing live coverage, my cousin jumped to see that two of those strange figures were standing at the main door again. As we stood up to run, both of us screamed to see that the third one was standing just outside the door to our room. Somehow we tackled him and went out from the back door. We got to our neighbor's house calling for help. My cousin and I were both absolutely terrified at this point, and we instantly called the cops. However, we didn't think it'd do much good as all the clips were about and a bit fuzzy. When they finally arrived, they asked us a few questions and looked around the property, verifying that nobody was still lurking around. Of course, at that point, they didn't find anyone and just told us they'd patrol the neighborhood for the rest of the night. We would end up making a report on the clowns for trespassing and gave the cops as much information as we could, including some of the footage and even the Snapchat usernames of the profiles that were on our location. I still don't know who those people were or how they were able to get my Snapchat. This whole ordeal has been very stressful and scary for me, my cousin, and the rest of our family. I'm still shaken up by the thought that they could return at any point with worse intentions. I've been regularly going to the gym since I was 15, and now at 21, I've spent a good chunk of my life in that environment. Although it can get hectic, the gym has been my go-to spot for some much-needed solitude, where I can briefly escape the stress of the outside world. This particular incident took place 3 years ago when I was 18. It was an ordinary Tuesday night, and I was on my way to the gym, looking forward to ending my day on a positive note. I got to the gym around 10 p.m., which was later than I usually go, but I liked the quiet of the late hours. It meant fewer people were around, and, to be honest, as someone who isn't very outgoing and being rather small in stature, I'm always extra cautious when I'm out alone at night. That night was exceptionally quiet. Just myself and 2 others were there. There was a shorter guy wearing a tank top and a taller, skinny man. I felt a sense of relief seeing how empty it was, but I also felt uneasy because of the taller man. There was something peculiar about him that I couldn't quite identify. Just a gut feeling that something was off. I was about halfway through my workout, taking a break between sets on the floor exercises for abs, when the taller, thinner man came over to me. He had long, shaggy black hair and a faint mustache and was strangely wearing regular street clothes instead of workout gear. His presence was a bit unsettling, especially with the creepy grin he wore as he looked down at me. I asked him if he needed something, and he casually asked if I needed any help with my exercises. Despite my initial misgivings, I chided myself for being judgmental. He introduced himself as Jacob and mentioned that he was fairly new to the gym and was just trying to make some new friends. We exchanged a few words, and I learned a bit about him before I politely wrapped up the conversation, eager to focus on my workout. However, before he walked away, he asked for my Snapchat. I didn't want to seem rude or standoffish, so I shared it, feeling a bit guilty for my earlier wariness. Later that evening, after I got home and was ready to sleep, my phone lit up with a notification. Jacob added you as a friend. I added him back before turning in for the night. But then, I awoke to an alarming 14 notifications from Jacob on Snapchat. Initially, it seemed he was just being overly friendly, but as I opened the snaps, my anxiety increased. The first picture was innocuous enough, just a street scene, but it struck me as oddly familiar. As I continued, each new snap gradually revealed that he was getting closer to my home. One snap showed my street, then my house from a distance, and increasingly nearer views until he was right outside my door. Feeling increasingly alarmed, I hesitated at calling the police as I hadn't documented any of the snaps. Taking a deep breath, I continued through the snaps, which now showed my front door opened, followed by a video inside my home. He had taken videos of my furniture and the pictures on the walls. Around 2 a.m., I bolted out of bed to inspect my house. I found footprints throughout, but thankfully nothing was missing. After finding images of my backyard, and even more disturbing, snaps showing me asleep in my bed, I finally called the police. As I waited for their arrival, I received another chilling snap from Jacob, a live photo of me in my bed, taken from a corner of my room where my cupboard was slightly open. Approaching cautiously with a baseball bat, I heard noises from the cupboard. As I opened it, Jacob, looking disheveled and frantic, leaped out. In a panic, I managed to defend myself until he fled through the back door just as the police arrived. The police conducted a thorough search and assured me they would monitor the area through the night. I immediately blocked Jacob and reported him to the gym the next day, only to discover they had no record of anyone by that name. He had likely snuck in with the intent to find a victim, and sadly, that was me. I've kept this terrifying experience to myself until now, haunted by what could have happened if the police hadn't arrived when they did. This ordeal was by far the most horrifying thing that has ever happened to me. This happened back in 2019 when I was 22 years old, living in a 2-bedroom house with my roommate. I moved into the house last year. My roommate is one of my good friends from college who happened to take a job in the same city as me, which isn't very far from the college we attended together. I would use Snapchat every day and had a pretty large number of friends on it. I would get added by a lot of people that I didn't know quite a bit. Sometimes I wouldn't know them at all, and other times they would be friends that I went to school with or did know in some way. But one night last summer, something happened that changed me completely, and I stopped using Snapchat completely. I was in my bedroom just chilling on my laptop when I casually looked at my phone to see a few Snapchat notifications. I saw that somebody named His location appeared to be just outside my house. He appeared to be standing on the street. My heart suddenly started racing. My blinds were covering the windows of my bedroom so I couldn't see out. I decided to slowly walk over to the window and carefully looked out. There was nothing at first, but as I moved my eyes across the street, I noticed a strange car parked on the side of the street. It was a little ways away and I figured this had to be the guy. Then I went back on my phone to see that he sent me a snap again. I opened it. I could now see that he was in a car. He asked me to stop leaving him on read, and at this point I sent him a snap asking him where he was right now. I saw he opened the snap right away, but he didn't respond right away like he usually did. I waited several minutes, but he never did reply. Then I looked back at the snap map, but he was now gone. He had turned his location off. I was afraid he had realized I was onto him and was now hiding. I slowly went back to the window, but when I looked out, the car was now gone. As I was about to turn around, I noticed a shadow just under the streetlight. When I took a closer look, there was a man standing in the light with his head down. He was twisting his neck in a very sinister way that scared me a lot. I didn't know what to do and stood there frozen, just staring at him. A moment later, he started moving and raised his head. I was terrified to see that it was the same old man with wrinkles all over his face. As I stood there in shock, the old man started running in a very crooked manner and headed straight towards my house. I fell down with fear, and now I could hear his footsteps getting closer in the street just outside my house. I tried to peek through the window again to see if he had entered the house or not, but now he was gone. I couldn't see him at all. I had no idea where he was, and maybe he was going to break into my house or something like that. I tried calling my roommate to tell him what was going on, but I knew that he was at work, and the chances of him picking up were slim. Sure enough, he didn't answer. I quickly went to the main door to see it was locked. I double-checked it and went around the house to see the back door. I was shocked to death when I saw that the door was opened without any breakage. I quickly grabbed the phone from my pocket and dialed 911 while running back into my bedroom and locked the door. The police said that they were on their way and told me to be careful till then. I was watching everywhere, and all of a sudden, I heard something breaking in the lounge. I couldn't tell what it was, but it was followed by lots of crashing sounds as if someone was hammering all the furniture and walls. But then it stopped. I heard footsteps getting closer, and they stopped just outside the bedroom door. The doorknob turned slowly, and when it didn't open, the other thing I heard was a loud bang, and the face of the hammer penetrated through my bedroom door. My heart started to pound even harder than it already was. I knew the door was locked though, so I was just hoping that police would arrive on time. I thought that this could be the last moment of my life when I heard sirens approaching my house in the street. The hammering stopped on the door, and I heard some footsteps running away, and finally he was gone. Police came in and they opened. They told me to open the bedroom door. When I did, I saw that everything in my house was upside down and broken. Police investigated further and took some evidence from me. I gave them the chat I had from Snapchat, and I also told them about the location on the snap map. But it didn't stop there. When police got to know about my roommate, they suggested calling him, but to my surprise, he didn't respond and didn't come home that night. Things got even more tragic when he didn't show up at the house even after a whole week. Police registered his disappearance as well. That night was the scariest experience of my life, and I still can't get over that scary old man.